This is TWiT. Didn't take this out of the box yet because I'm so impressed by this. This is the Mac Mini, and actually, of all the things Apple announced and shipped last week, this might be the most interesting. It might make people the happiest. Look at the experience opening this up. Look at that. You open it up and it's like, this is what Steve Jobs always said in Johnny Ive. It should be a theatrical experience.
Yeah, you spent a lot of money on that computer. Yeah. You should feel good about opening it up.
Only in slate gray. Don't forget your gold color.
Yeah, it's space gray or it's nothing.
And people will, by the way, be very happy. I know a lot of server companies are. It's the same size. It's the same shape.
Yeah, they decided to redesign the entire inside but not change the aluminum outside. The aluminum shape is exactly the same. So Mac Stadium, all of those people, anybody who's got this stuck in a very specific spot in a desk somewhere, don't do it. It is going to fit. You can literally just unplug the ports and then plug them back in. That's what I did.
And talk about ports. This thing is loaded. Let me take it out of the box. We'll show you. You've got one already out. But I like the unboxing experience.
Yeah, it's good.
And people will enjoy this. Oh, I didn't show you. The gold MacBook Air comes with gold Apple stickers. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Now how much would you pay? I got the black Apple stickers from my old Mac Pro. And what color are these? Are these slate?
I think might be black Apple stickers.
Let's find out.
The power cord is black.
The power cord is black, ladies and gentlemen.
No, white.
White.
White stickers. Yeah, they cheaped out there. You got to get the iMac Pro for the black ones.
Okay, and then they.
Apples.
I love the reveal. So
this is the best part. The tape coming off the back is the best part.
Where'd all the ports go? See, if you have an 8-year-old or maybe a 5-year-old, this would be great.
Other side.
Other side. Oh yeah, there's always an easy side, and I always pick the hard side. Look at this. What do you think's under there? What do you think?
USB-A.
USB-A. Headphone jack.
It's the old school part of the back of the Mac Mini.
What else?
HDMI.
Full-size HDMI?
Interesting.
By the way, HDMI 2.0. The latest. One.
Oh, there's some USB-C Thunderbolt 3, 2,
3. Could it be 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports?
That's true.
That's better than 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports.
Maybe. How would we know?
We wouldn't know. There is a gigabit Ethernet full size.
Yep.
And you can get 10 if you really want.
That's what I did.
Did you?
I did.
Do you have 10 at home?
I do now because I have an iMac Pro and I have a Mac Mini with.
Your local area network is fast as. We actually have 10 gigabits from Sonic. I should probably get 10 on this, but I didn't. I got a gigabit.
Yeah.
And there.
It's my file server. Yep. And there's the power plug.
And there's the power.
Exact same power plug.
By the way, had to be because there's a U mounting rack that has a. Who makes that one? That has a mechanical switch. You press the front and it has a little mechanical lever that presses the back.
Press the power button.
Yeah. So it had to be exactly the same, and they did. Apple
Absolutely.
thought about it. So. We've seen the iFixit tear down to this. You can kind of get into it if you have the right wedges and spudgers.
Yeah, it is very much upgrading the RAM, and this is like upgrading the hard drive was on the old model, which is you got to go all the way to the bottom. But it is SO-DIMMs. They're standard. You can do what Apple recommends, that you have a authorized person do it.
Yes.
Who knows what they're doing, because you may break things if you take it apart. But you can. You can't upgrade the storage because those storage chips are paired to the T2.
This has a T2 as well.
Yes, it does.
No fingerprint reader. No touch bar.
No, it's just using it for safe boot and as the disk controller, and it'll encrypt your disk on the fly, which is nice because somebody could just walk away with that little thing.
I love FileVault. I turn it on, and now FileVault has literally 0 penalty.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
In fact, everything is encrypted by default, but you can encrypt it to your Apple ID and with a password if you want. So there's actually encryption happening regardless if somebody ripped those chips out.
Yeah. So this is real, and it has a new cooling structure.
Right, because this thing you can spec up with lots and lots of processor power, and so like the iMac Pro, they have built a new cooling system with a very large vent in the back.
This, I feel like in some ways, this is the most interesting product that Apple released. First of all, they didn't have to update the Mac Mini. It's 4 years old already. They've survived 4 years without one.
And that 4-year upgrade was a downgrade. It was actually worse afterward than before.
But the fact that they did, and they did it so well, This really is almost a zero compromise machine for the size. I mean,
the big difference is that it starts at $799 instead of $499. We talk about
expensive.
Apple raising the prices, but in this, I think it's justified because what Apple wanted to do is build a system that started at a pretty good spot for a server, basically a home server, something like that, and then had lots of headroom up.
this could be your desktop.
So you can configure that up, and it could be a desktop. You can attach a couple of 5K displays to it. It's almost like a little mini Mac Pro, honestly.
That's kind of what I felt like. The only thing, it's not a Xeon. It's only
yeah, it's a desktop class processor.
i7. But still, this is a very nice, I think, a beautiful machine. We're going to use this actually in production. This is going to become our new kind of 5th Skype box. We have 4 Skypes, but we'll have FaceTime capability and others.
And people say, like, who uses a Mac Mini? And that's part of the point, is that there's no one audience for the Mac Mini, but there are lots of them out there in lots of surprising places. My understanding is that most, like Broadway theater productions, they're the lighting controller.
So small.
A lot of them are the sound controllers.
Yeah.
After the Apple event 2 weeks ago, I went to a podcast studio in Midtown Manhattan and went into their mixing room to do an episode. And what was driving the entire board? Mac Mini.
Yeah.
Right? So they're, and for Apple,
now,
I
these
think,
aren't silent. They're not going to be silent.
They're not going to be silent, but they're pretty quiet.
Yeah.
And because they've designed them, Apple these days tries to design its fans to be quiet, not like on the MacBook Air, but the iMac Pro is pretty quiet most of the time too. But for Apple, it serves an important purpose, which is that it kind of takes the pressure off all the other Macs. Like if there is not another Mac to do whatever crazy thing that you want to do, your lighting in your Broadway show or whatever, the Mac Mini will do it. Like the Mac Mini is the answer for every other little niche job that you need a Mac to do.
Do you think this is in some way going to inform us about what a modular Mac Pro will look like next year?
Well, I think it sets the base for the Mac Pro, right? Like the Mac Pro doesn't have to go down too far because that thing can go up.
It could start
pretty
as
far.
Xeon W or even higher.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So this, I think, maybe defines sort of the low end of the Mac Pro, and then it'll go up from there, which means I think it gives Apple the freedom to make that thing expensive, because if you don't want to spend that money, you can get a Mac Mini. And they talk about modular, and this is probably a good example of a computer that's not modular, although Thunderbolt 3, like, you can hang an eGPU off of it. It has onboard graphics. You were talking about Intel onboard graphics. It does not have a GPU, but if you really want to go to town, that thing could eat the Mac Mini alive, but you can attach that with Thunderbolt 3 and then use it as your GPU.
Yeah, because this has, of course, Intel's motherboard GPU on it. The base model is $799 for the Mac Mini. That includes a 3.6 gigahertz quad-core i3, UHD graphics 630, 8 gigs of DDR4 SODIMM RAM, and 128 gig PCIe SSD. You get all those ports.
And the gigabit Ethernet.
And gigabit Ethernet. You can go all the way up to an i7, 3.2 gigahertz i7 with 6 cores. That's pretty nice. And you can go all the way up to 64 gigs of RAM. That tells you there's some this is intended to be
and
a
2
pro
terabytes
device.
of flash storage, which is pretty wild.
With this Thunderbolt, Thunderbolt can run a GPU, but it can also run lots of fast hard drives. There's lots of
That's why I bought the base model, is that I have a big RAID attached to it via Thunderbolt, so I don't need internal storage other than to boot the thing.
The other thing that's cool about this story, this is made entirely from recycled aluminum, as is the MacBook Air.
And it's basically the shavings from
soda cans.
No, it's not. It's shavings from the iPhone and the iPad and from the Mac Mini and from the MacBook Air.
So somewhere your old Mac Mini's in here.
All the old, not the old ones. It's so they're unibody, right? So it starts out as a block.
Okay.
And then they carve them out.
Of diminishing
and all
returns.
the stuff that's carved them out. But apparently they've been saving the aluminum for years now, and have figured out how to put it back in here.
We've got binders full of aluminum.
I just love the metaphor too, that like the leftovers from iPads and iPhones make Macs now.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. This is really beautiful.